Hello backpackers, this is Juan from On Backpacks and I'm here to talk to you today about the Gossamer Gear Whisper Light Shelter. It's a shelter that I brought into my kit because I wanted something extremely light. I was also looking for something bug proof. I was looking for something that would be great for the summer and take me a little bit in the fall and even take me, kind of at the beginning of the season in that late springtime when the weather's not as bad. And I kind of looked at different things and definitely the Whisper Light Shelter kind of rose to the top. It's a very light shelter. It's very minimalistic. I would characterize it as kind of a tarp more than it is a tent. And it's kind of like a single wall shelter. Well, it is a single wall shelter. The thing about it is though, it's got a bug netting around the outside perimeter. And so that means that it's bug proof. So let's go ahead and take a look at the components here, and I'll let you know right off the bat, this thing is going to come in at 15.5 ounces all in. It's got tons of room, as you'll see when I set it up in a few minutes later into the video. It's probably more like a 1.5 person shelter. If you're a person who goes with a dog or something like this is something, and you want something minimalistic, this would be a cool shelter to have. And so let's go ahead and dive into the three main components, and I'll talk about the trekking pole situation with it because it does set up with trekking poles. So this is the shelter, the Gossamer Gear Whisper. It comes in at 9.6 ounces with the Dyneema stuff sack. It is a Dyneema shelter with, as I said, a perimeter of bug netting around the bottom. So it is bug proof because it goes to the ground. It's an extremely roomy shelter. It has a low foot end and a high upper end, but you can easily sit up in this, get dressed in this. You got tons of room for your gear inside as well, and you'll see that once I set it up. This is 9.6 ounces, so let's keep track of that weight. The next thing you're going to need with this shelter, obviously, is some stakes to set it up. It takes a total of 7 stakes. I use the Groundhog Minis for this, and it's in a Dyneema stuff sack. You can see I've got 7 of these Groundhog Minis. I would also maybe recommend, I haven't used them, I've got use bigger stakes, but you might use a normal size Groundhog on the foot end and on the head end, because you're kind of almost setting up like a ridge line, a tight ridge line. And so you might need a little bit longer stake in some conditions to really be able to kind of tighten that up and make that ridge line work right. And you'll see that when I set it up, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But this is a Dyneema bag, 7 stakes that you need to set it up. This all comes in at 2.3 ounces. So far we got 9.6 ounces plus 2.3. The last thing you're gonna need, not the last thing, the next to last thing you're gonna need to know about this shelter is it doesn't have a floor. And so again, that's why I compare it to a tarp rather than to a tent. It doesn't have a floor. And so to solve that little problem, all you need is a ground sheet from Gossamer Gear or some other company that sells these Nylaflume ground sheets, basically. This one's a large size. It's actually bigger than what I need. This ground sheet comes in at 3.6 ounces. So if we pause and we add up those 3 numbers I just gave you, we've got a total of 15.5 ounces for this shelter. This is an extremely light shelter, and as you'll see, it's roomy. It's kind of weatherproof. I would say it's pretty darn weatherproof. I wouldn't take it out in any major storms, sideways rain, things like that, but it's a pretty solid shelter. But it's coming in at 15.5 ounces. Now, those are the 3 main components of the shelter. The last thing you're going to need to know about before we do a walk around is that it takes trekking poles to set up. So the shelter itself was built around the Gossamer Gear LT5s. There's a high end to the shelter and a low end to the shelter, the foot end. The high end is based on the trekking pole. It goes up to 130 centimeters. So to set this shelter up, you need trekking poles that go up to 130 centimeters on the head side. So you use 1 trekking pole there. And then on the foot end, you need 23 inches on the foot end to set it up. I guess you could go digging for a stick if your trekking poles didn't break down like the LT5s. This is the length of the LT5 completely collapsed. That's why I say the shelter's built around the LT5s. And so 23 inches is this length. And so if you have a stick that's 23 inches, or your trekking poles will break down to about approximately 23 inches, then you've got the right lengths you need to set the shelter up. Now, if you have your favorite trekking poles though, and you don't want to give those up and they don't break down quite that way and it might be a little bit awkward, you can buy poles from Gossamer Gear, aluminum poles, which I did purchase just because I wanted to have them in case I didn't. But here's the thing with these. I've got a shelter that comes at 15.5 ounces. These weigh about 5 ounces. It's like 4.7 ounces. Once you add in the poles with the shelter, right, then you're driving your shelter weight up close to 20 ounces or so. That gets you into the range of, let's say, a Durston X-Mid one person, Dyneema, the Pro version, which I do have, and mine comes in at 22 ounces. So then I'm getting close to that. Now, if I want the minimalistic kind of feel of the Whisper Light, which you'll see in a few minutes, then I stick with the Whisper Light and say, hey, you know, I could do the Durston for another 3-4 ounces, but I'm just not going to do that because I enjoy the experience that I have in this shelter. But that's something you do need to think about. Now, here's a little workaround of that too, though. You could take just the short stake, okay? If your poles go to 130 centimeters, but you can't see a way to break them down to 23 inches, you could just take this one. You got to buy the whole set though, but you could just take this one short pole here, and this is only 1.5 ounces. So we take the 15.5 ounces of the floor, the stakes, and the shelter itself with the stuff sack, and we add in 1.5 ounces. We're still at 17 ounces. So we're still 5 ounces lighter than probably any other, you know, tent on the market. And so we're still in good shape. So basically that's one kind of workaround there if you don't have a shorter pole. And I've thought about that at times because I have another set of trekking poles I really like, and they don't break down to 23 inches or even anything close to that. And so that's why I bought this actually, in case I wanted to use my other trekking poles. But again, that is a tarp-like bug-proof shelter, which we'll see in a couple minutes, that comes in at 15.5 ounces all in. Let's go take a look at it now. Do a little walk around. All right, backpackers, let's go ahead and take a closer look at this shelter. This is a Gossamer Gear Whisper. I didn't use the trekking poles to set it up. I just used the aluminum poles that you can buy separately. The shelter itself is set up already. It's only taken me about 5 minutes literally to set this thing up. It's got 1, 2, 3 lines in the back there that are adjustable, and then one off the foot end. The main 2 lines are important to get taut, and this is why I recommended using one longer stake, is that the ridge line that comes off here, and then it's created by the adjustable line that comes off the back here. To keep that ridge line nice and straight and nice and taut is really important when you're setting it up. I'm not going to talk about setting it up because Glenn Van Pesky already made a video about that, and he does a much better job at explaining that than I ever could because he designed the shelter. And so I'm just going to talk about the features and the use of this. But I find that in the times I've used it, it's gone up really quickly, which is really nice, and it's really simplistic. You can see here, you got plenty of room. It's got a nice taut pitch here. I've got a perimeter bug netting around here. I've got plenty of space here for airflow and so forth. Again, this is mainly a summer shelter for me, early fall, late spring, something like that. And so I don't worry too much about weather, but this does actually angle back in so that when there's rain, it doesn't come down. You know, if you angle this the right way and you pull that in once you get in there, I didn't really fiddle with it much. It won't collect rain on the netting. It'll just drip down and come off the end. So you can see here, I've got a lower foot end, got a higher head end at 130 centimeters, got tons of room inside here. And so let's go inside real quick. And I'm going to show you a little bit from your distance here. And I'm going to bring you inside the shelter in a second. It's got a waterproof zipper that goes the whole way down through the netting. And so it doesn't split the netting. And so basically, it's really easy to work, really great zipper. I can even pull it like this if I want to. And then if I want to, whenever I'm in here in the daytime and there's no bugs, I can go ahead and roll this up. And there's actually a toggle here. It's not magnetic, there's a toggle there. I can use that toggle, and it's adjustable to tighten this up and keep this out of the way so I can enjoy my shelter, an open shelter during the day when I'm in here eating or whatever. So I can go inside here. You can see I've got my ground sheet in here. It overlaps the top of the bug netting, and I'll show you in a minute, but that bug netting is really angled, and that's really important because it angles into the shelter so it's not sticking out, so that when it rains, it doesn't, you know, wick moisture into your shelter. It keeps it outside, and it's dripping pretty much off the Dyneema of the shelter first. It's got lots of room in the foot end. You can see here, I can put a pack there and so forth. Head end, I've got lots of room there that I'll show you in a couple minutes, where I can put different gear that I use. A lot of times I'll throw like gear that I want during the night, like my headlamp, charging things and so forth. And so I'll have that there. You can see the pole here. One of the things that you can do to make room is move that pole instead of center straight down the middle. You can move it 5 inches to the forward and a little bit to the head of the tent here, or the shelter, and then that makes plenty of room for a 25-inch pad. I've had a 25-inch pad in here, no problem, and I've got tons of other room. It doesn't have a vestibule, but this little pop out here acts like a vestibule. It's a little pop out in the front of the tent here near the door, and so you can put gear right here and not have too much trouble at all. And so that's the shelter. Let's go ahead and go inside and take just a closer look at things. It's really minimalist. It doesn't have any pockets, anything like that. But again, it's got plenty of room. I've been in here when I brought my pack inside because there's no vestibule. I brought other gear inside with me, and I've had plenty of room with my 25-inch pad in there too. Square 25-inch pad, no less. So let's go ahead and go inside, and I'll explain a little bit more about the shelter. So before you go inside, you can see the line locks. The two most important adjustable lines are going to be coming off the head end of the shelter to here. You can see the adjuster, the cord hanging down there. Basically, you want to make sure you have a nice taut ridge line, and then the ridge line runs across the top middle of the shelter and then out the other side. You can see here the configuration. You've got two fixed lines coming off of either corner of the foot end, and then you've got this adjustable line, which again keeps the ridge line of the shelter nice and tight when you're setting it up. You can see I've got two separate lines coming off the back as well, and so that sets it up nicely. Inside, you can see I've got the ground cloth in here. I haven't spent a whole lot of time doing that, but you can see how the netting angles in here. It angles in so that when it rains, the water drips down on the outside and doesn't come down the netting. And that's really what you've got to kind of be careful about when you're setting this up. Make sure that you're pulling that netting into the middle of the shelter so that there's not, so the netting's not kind of sticking out beyond the Dyneema. And really naturally, the way it's designed, that just happens. You don't have to really think about it a whole lot. You can see here the whole way around the perimeter, it's literally coming inside. Once I zip up the shelter here on the outside, it will fix that little piece there and it'll pull it into the middle. Once you kind of zippered the whole thing up, it'll pull the netting into the middle. And so you want to make sure that you don't lay this ground cloth like this, because what happens if you do get some dripping into the netting, if you have the bug netting on top of your ground cloth, you're going to get water, right? If it does drip along the netting. So you want to make sure that your ground cloth is on top of it. You can see here I have a 13.6 ounce ground sheet, which is a large Nylaflume, I think, ground sheet. You probably can cut that down pretty considerably. I mean, I can lose probably 25% of this ground sheet cutting it down to actually fit the netting perfectly. And there are measurements on the Gossamer Gear website for that. You can see here that I've had the pole here. There's a little slot for it if you're using a trekking pole to put the point of the trekking pole up in there, and it protects it. There's a grommet up here. Let's see if I can see the grommet. Can't really see the grommet. Let's get up in there. There's a grommet. There we go. We can see the grommet now. And then, so when you put your trekking pole in, you put it in trekking pole up, handle down. You can see here, I just used my bag to keep from poking this thing through. If I'm using my trekking poles, the handle, quite honestly, keeps it from poking through the Nylaflume ground sheet, but I need a little bit extra protection there, so I didn't want a hole in my ground sheet. Not good. You can see the floor at the bottom here. I mean, it's literally tons of space across here, and I fit like a small pack on the foot end if I want to, or anything else. There are no pockets on the inside, but it is extremely roomy on the inside. Like I said, there's plenty of room for a 25-inch pad. You could probably fit a dog in here with you. And you can see, if you look closer at the way the Dyneema is sewn over top of the netting, you can see here at the edge. This is really important. The Dyneema goes beyond the edge of the netting here. And so what happens is the rain will come down, and it'll, as long as you have your thing zipped up and you have your netting pulled in a little bit, which again, it naturally happens anyway, it angles in because the way it's designed, the dripping will happen on the outside of your netting and not really run down the netting. I mean, I can imagine it does a little bit, but again, the design looks pretty good. You've got some ventilation here at the top, And there's very little ventilation in the, in the rest of the, well, there's no ventilation like near the top anyplace else, just here at the foot end. But again, you've got so much netting around the outside. One thing that you can do, if you wanted to, and I've done this once, is actually lower the trekking pole to like 125 centimeters so that I can get the Dyneema closer to the ground. If it does get windy and there is weather, you can lower everything a little bit, a few inches, and that makes it less likely that wind is going to drive rain in. But again, I haven't had any really driving rain tests on this thing, and so I just imagine that's something you could probably do. So that is the inside of the tent. Okay, backpackers, well, you can see that this tent is very roomy. You can see it's also really nice. I can sit here and I can have a meal, enjoying if I've got some view or something like that. I've got plenty of room. I've got room for gear back there. Plenty of height to sit up under most of the shelter. I mean, literally, I can move towards the foot and still be sitting up in the tent. And right here's where I typically get dressed. So you've got plenty of room to move, plenty of shoulder room when you're getting dressed at the end of the day, putting on your sleep clothes or the end of the night. So this is just really, quite honestly, a really impressive, kind of almost a hybrid between a tarp and a actual trekking pole tent, single wall. And I'm looking forward to getting it out for more miles. I will be using this shelter on the Ray Lakes loop. And so I will probably talk a little bit about this shelter while I'm on my Ray Lakes loop, making that video. So until next time, backpackers, get out there, do some backpacking, do some hiking, stop watching YouTube videos, unless they're mine, and watch them all from start to finish.